Hello and welcome to Tutul Dialogues. I'm so excited because we have two very special women and very fine professionals on our show today. The first is Poonam Chandok, who heads HR at L&T Hydrocarbon, and the second is Dr. Afsha, who is the global head of L&D at L&T Hydrocarbon. We work very closely with them and we'd love to listen to some of their insights as to what makes them who they are. Let me start by talking about Poonam. Let me talk a little bit about who she is as a person. One of the things that strikes you about her is her passion and focus. The passion and focus is equally strong for her work as well as for her children. She's a very, very committed mother. When I asked her what makes her come to work every day with so much of enthusiasm and determination to contribute, she says that her inspiration is her own mother, who made it a point to focus on her children and make sure that she was there for them when they came home every day for lunch. At L&T, Poonam has led many strategic initiatives that include scale-up of businesses, that includes Winspire, an initiative to help women develop. She is also heading the CSR division. Poonam is very passionate about social causes and works with several NGOs in the social space. I'm delighted to have Poonam here today. Every day she deals with large, complex situations, and I would love to see how she blends her personal beliefs with what she does at work. She feels that everybody deserves a chance, and her approach to dealing with everyone is with a sense of love and openness. And she believes that very strongly in God and believes that that is the guide or that is the spirit that gets her to do what she does. So welcome, Poonam. Lovely to have you here. I will now try and introduce Dr. Afsha. Dr. Afsha Dokadia comes from the city of Aurangabad, and she's had a very, very interesting life. She almost became a criminal lawyer and then changed it and got into marketing and did a lot of entrepreneurial things, and then decided to study HR and then finally got a PhD on generational diversity from Tata Institute. Apart from teaching at Tata Institute, she also played the role of consultant with many public sector and large organizations, and then changed her track to become L&D head at L&T Hydrocarbon. Dr. Afsha enjoys many things in life. You will often hear her quoting Shero Shairi, listening to very interesting songs and dealing with young people. She thinks that staying with young people and listening to them and understanding them keeps your mind alive. One of the things that Dr. Afsha is very particular about is creating an environment of psychological safety where everyone who meets her feels very comfortable opening up and talking to her. She's been awarded several recognitions from the industry and from her peer group for the excellence in the work she does. I think there's a lot more left in terms of what she wishes to do in the future. Welcome, Dr. Afsha. It's great to have you here. We normally work together on several initiatives, and it's very nice to be able to invite her in today's session. Thank you very much, Poonam and Afsha, for being here today. Let me start with the first question. It is my belief that some incidents in our childhood go a long way in shaping how we behave and some of our beliefs and how we behave when we grow up. Is there any incident that you'd like to share about your childhood or from your family that has had a deep impact on you, Poonam?
Of course, who I am and what I am has a lot to do with the way my parents have brought me up, and a lot of value systems. I would like to believe I'm mirroring what they are, what they have taught me. I think the one deep one I would like to share with you. So my father is from a very poor family. His father was in a very ordinary job. It was a large family. There were 10 brothers and sisters. Their uncle and aunt stayed with them, so a large household. Just to give you an idea of how poor, his first scholarship in BSc that he got was half of his father's salary, which was running a household of 14 people. In that household, he saw that his mother was the giver, and she would cook for everyone. It was an angan kind of a concept, and at the end of it, every day he found that there was some street dog that she had adopted, and she would ask him to look over the leftover food. She would go take a bath, and she would come back and Moti the dog, and she would eat the food together, and he didn't like that. Second thing what he saw was that when children were hungry, they were told to wait. it was the elders in the family who had to eat. They were served first, and then the children were given food. So he was a rebel in his own way, and he said that I don't think this is the right thing to be. And in our house, when I was growing up, the rule was that till my mother doesn't come and sit on the table, we will not start eating. So this whole UP concept of hot fulka being served was completely busted, because it doesn't matter hot or cold, till mummy will not sit on the table, none of us will start eating. And secondly, the first bite from his plate he would give to the youngest, whoever was the youngest around. So most of the time it was me. So he would give the first bite just to rebel against that thing what happened through his childhood years. I have an elder brother, and I found that as I was growing up, he would study, so I would be sent out to buy stuff. If the maid doesn't come, he would clean the bigger rooms, I would clean the smaller rooms. That was a way of life for me. When I entered college, I found this whole discussion about gender inequality, and I was like, what is wrong with them? Where is there gender inequality in this world? And I don't know what they're talking about, till it took me a while to understand that mine was an unusual house, thanks to my father, thanks to the way he brought me up. And I think that privilege that I got of being brought up in that way, somewhere embedded in my heart, that what can I do to kind of help women who may not have had this privilege of being, of the upbringing that I have. Can I do something to make a small difference in their life, so that they can realize their full potential and not get shackled by whatever that has happened in their life? So I think that one value which I got, I think I hold it very dear to me.
Such a beautiful story, and how it shaped you and your beliefs. I mirror that, because when I was growing up, I was asked to do we were two sisters, and I was asked to do everything that a girl and a boy does. And I remember carrying heavy bags from the market. I remember learning to repair a fuse. And I remember my father asking me to learn cooking, because he said, you live alone. And I did live alone for 3 years, and it really helped me. And when you go into the world and you see that everyone doesn't have that, or if there's less food at home, the brother gets it. It is realizing that how privileged we are in the way we've been brought up. So I think that gives us an edge as we go into the workplace. So let's ask Dr. Afsha. Dr. Afsha, any interesting story that from your childhood that you'd like to recount that has stayed with you?
Sure. In fact, when we were discussing about this and you gave us the brief, I started thinking which is the one that I actually want to talk about. So I thought that I had zeroed down on two. Growing up, I was absolutely privileged to have very inspirational role models, women role models within the house. My grandmother, my mom, my aunties. After growing up, it was my mother-in-law, my sisters-in-law. So I've had a privileged space. This is one instance that I remember. This is an incident which took in the late 1980s. My father is a businessman who handles milk as a product. So once it happened that in the 80s there was a communal riot that happened in our city, and this was very close to a festive season. So we had ordered a lot of milk, because festivities in India is equal to mithai and milk and everything. And we had ordered so much, and because of the riots there was a curfew, which was like, the highest level of curfew that you could ever imagine, and everything was on a lockdown. Now I'm talking about 80s, when you do not have that much of a space to store or, process a lot of stuff. So there was thousands of liters of milk inside the house. There is a curfew outside, and my father doesn't know what to do with that. Interestingly, he always had that confidant and my grandmother and my mom. So he went to both of them and said, what do I do with all these things? So they said, okay, let's do one thing. My grandmother gave him a trick. She said that boil the milk and put starter into it and make curd out of it. And he's looking dumbfounded to this lady that she's saying thousands of liters of milk to be boiled and put. She said, don't worry, just do it. And he did it. She turned around and said, what is the problem of today? Now it is going to be a problem of tomorrow or day after maybe. We will get time to think. So we created curd out of it. The second day, by the time it became curd, she put the word around in the community that I need curd churners, In Hindi we call it ravi. And by morning we had those curd churners. We had so much of curd within the house. She said, now put water into it and make buttermilk. She knew that because the curfew was going on for 2 days, the community would not have the access to go to get vegetables or anything. She said, now put the word across the community that we will be selling buttermilk and you can have chach or you can make curry or you can make anything out of it. And believe me, Sujata, the product that we had went swiftly without anybody knowing, the police not getting to know about it. I mean, this is such a big lesson for me in resilience and manage the first steps will happen. And when you believe in the power of community will stand with you and collaborations will help, Secondly, when my father was growing his business, at one point of time it became too huge. My mother stepped in and she became a partner. She started managing stuff. Now, I come from a community which is not very famous for allowing, women to have very external facing roles, for a loss of words. But she did that, managing a house, managing relationships, managing everything, and then taking care of the business. So I think these two instances told me the power of empowerment, the value of empowerment, and the value of resilience that you can ever build. And I think women are the ones who actually can bring it out. So I think these two instances I would like to share with you.
It's incredible. I always wonder when we think about our grandmothers or we think about people in our family. Question is, how would we like to be remembered? What would people remember us for as women? But let me move to corporate world, and so let me ask you this question, Poonam. You've been part of an engineering giant in different businesses for many years, and you've seen scale, you've seen complexity, you've seen challenge, you've seen great times. According to you, what are 2 or 3 things you see leaders adopt to succeed, and what are 2 or 3 things that can actually come and curtail one's career?
When I think of successful role models as leaders, I was very fortunate to work with a couple of them. I mean, whom I'm currently working with, Mr. Subramanian Sharma, my earlier leader, Mr. D.K. Sen. There was a situation in business where I'll tell that incident with Mr. Sen, that our business declared losses. It had not, such massive losses openly being declared had not yet happened in L&T, but it happened for various reasons for our business. And there was a town hall, and he stood in the town hall, and I still remember the gesture. I have failed, you have not. And he says, now will you partner with me in turning around the business? And believe me, everyone, 200% he won over at that moment. Every person in the system thought, what can I do in my capacity to turn around the business? And when around that particular business had around 3,000 people, when 3,000 people have taken it upon themselves to turn around a business, the business turns around. And once you have the people and you have their hearts, I always say that everything can be handled. What is there that can handle? I always work to win people's heart. I will work very hard to win your heart if you're working with me. I'll work very hard to win your heart when you're working with me. Because once I have that, I know we can move mountains.
They say heart intelligence is deeper than other intelligence. So, any mistake that people tend to make, which sort of one mistake that people make that can impact careers?
I think people have to be honest about giving commitments. I think I have found many people, they want to get away from the current, and they will say certain things and push the problem to another day. Very, very different from your experience of solving the problem another day. In a very positive mind space, they push the problem, or if it is not to be discovered, then why should I talk about it? Let me wait for it to be discovered. And I have found, of course, there are many examples of such behaviors. Do they go far? Up to a point, yes, but eventually the truth comes out and it never helps. So personally, I would rather work with an average performer who has a clean heart and is willing to give his 150% than a very smart guy who's going to pull up wool over my eyes.
Eventually it all comes out and you can't get away with fooling people for a while.
Yeah, and attitude trumps everything.
Attitude trumps everything. Let's come to Dr. Afsha now.
Sure, ma'am.
From the world of academia and marketing and to the world of to a corporate organization, what are one or two things you're extremely passionate about? What's your mission to do in L&D that you think is very, very important?
I think long back when I started my career journey, I was very, very sure and very, very certain that the purpose of my life is to make other people's life meaningful and to help them in their growth journey. And to that, I think whether it is academia or whether I was working as a branding consultant or a consultant for organizations, and today in my role in L&T, that has been one thing that has always kept true to me, and I've strived by it. And a few things which I think which are the crucibles, if I may want to say, is two things. Is learning agility is the most important thing for any working professional, whether it is me or her or you. How do we keep ourselves relevant? How do we want to go ahead? How do we learn to learn? How do we put the science of learning behind learning, and how do you put it into practice? So the world is changing at such a fast pace, and we need to know the science behind it, and we need to practice that. The second thing is that people go through various S curves of learning. When you start your career, you're at the base of the S, and when you're a newbie, you're getting to know a lot of stuff, and then finally you get a career, a role, and then there is a steep learning. And once the steep learning has happened in that particular role, then you come to a plateau where you're comfortable that, okay, I know. If you stay there for a very long time, it is going to be very difficult for you to move ahead and experience a lot of other exposures that you have. You need to understand, how do I move from that plateau and go to the next part of the S, or start with the next S. That change is something that keeps people relevant. That change is something that keeps people belonging to the organization and much more poised and potential to work for the organization.
When you're a senior person, everybody is watching you all the time and constantly evaluating you, and there's a lot of pressure to make sure you are delivering, you're on track. What are some of the things that you look at to ensure that you are on track and you're delivering?
So I think it's the other way around. What I have noticed is there are traits in people which start very early in life, and those are the right traits, and then those traits take them to where they are. Then people start watching on whatever it is, but the traits start very early. In my case, very early in life, and I don't know who taught me this. I say a silent thank you every day from where I learnt it. But every day I ask myself a question, and uninterrupted, I have had a 30 years career. Every single day, very diligently, when I sit in the car, I ask myself a question: have I earned my salary for the day? I used to ask that 15 years back. I still ask that. Now why? Because it gives me that 5-7 minutes to reflect on the day, on what I have done, what were my priorities, what did I do. The interesting thing which I want to tell very honestly is the answer yes every day? No. There are days when the answer is not yes. I'm a human being. I get derailed at times, or I'm upset about something, or I've had some fun that day and not really done my priorities. And since it's self-evaluation, you're not lying, right? But I am very comfortable with that answer, because I know for a fact that next day I am aware that yesterday was not as productive, and so next day I make sure that it is. So it's like a self-monitoring, and if you do that religiously and diligently, and I'm sure there must be other people doing different things, but for me, I stay on point every single day, because I know at the end of the day I'll ask myself this question, and I'm not very happy if too many days I am saying no, and I don't say no too many days.
Of course.
So that is one. And as I'm saying this, as I'm sharing this with you, there's one thing I want to tell everybody watching, is that this is not the only way. Whatever I share with you, I always very humbly would like to put across that reflect on whatever we are sharing, what she's sharing, what you will be sharing. Decide for yourself what is going to work for your career. There is no one route to success. You have to build your own route to success. So decide for yourself, decide to keep what you want to keep, reject the others, it doesn't matter. So just because I'm saying it or anybody is saying it, it doesn't mean the only thing to do. So having said that, the second thing which I do is every 6 months I ask myself, have I done something which I can talk about in my CV? Now my CV is something I've not made too often in life, very rarely. I've made it actually only thrice. Once when I left college, once when and twice when I changed my jobs. So it's job changing. CV is not something that is, comes naturally to me. But what I take away from this statement is, what would I put on a CV? Something that I'm extremely proud about and I would want the other person to know. CV should not be more than 2.5 pages, so it has to have that value, that sentence. Which means I have to do something in the next 6 months which I can put in my CV, which is different, which I can talk about and which I'm extremely proud about and which I have executed. Only then I can defend it in an interview. It keeps me very forward looking. I can never rest on what I have done so far, because for me every time the question is, next 6 months kya karne wali ho? What are you going to do?
And there are so many leaders who go back and reminisce about the old days, which is wonderful because you have so many stories. But aage kya? You can't rest on the past. And that's one of the things I saw. People with 20, 30 years of experience talk a lot about the old days, and I would say, am I going to also do that when I have 30 years? And what are the new things I'm doing? So yeah, I think this is really brilliant, looking ahead instead of looking at the back.
And recently when I was talking about this to a group of young girls, I told them what I've done in the last 6 months, which is new, and they knew about it because it's been done in the organization. And I told them, I said, see, it's a genuine thing that I keep doing. And now I'm planning for, Jan to July what I'm going to do new. But yes, I think these two tenets have been like a self-motivator, self-reflection, and keeps me very excited about my work.
I know, I work with you, I know how it is. All right. So let's turn to Dr. Afsha. Dr. Afsha,
Yes, ma'am.
You've been with this organization for a while and you have a way with people. You have a way of connecting and getting people to do all kinds of things to help the organizational agenda. What are 2 or 3 things that you'd like to share that enables you to get the best out of people?
I think, Sujata, I was just reflecting upon the question that you asked, Poonam ma'am, that, what are 1 or 2 mistakes that leaders do. I think I would say this is where I'm reflecting on what our MD always says, that, the job you have right now is the most important one. Take it seriously. When people start taking things for granted, when leaders start taking hierarchies for granted, that's the recipe for demise. And I think keeping oneself relevant, keeping oneself positioned for critical success is a very important thing for leaders, and I think we partner with them to make them successful and make them more relevant. That's one very important aspect. The second thing, how we work within L&T and how specifically I like to work is I like to work and love to create a lot of psychological safety. Now, from the space of where psychological safety earlier started as a research point to now where it is, there are a couple of things that are important learnings for all working professionals. When you are in a team like a learning and OD team, which has to be very creative, there has to be an amazing amount of space where you can do mistakes, accept it, learn fast and move on. So that is one space that my team members and people working in my teams will always have, that accept, move on. So that trust is there, that if I'm doing something, I will be able to talk about it. The second thing is, there's an interesting book called Chatter, which is by Ethan Kross, from Michigan Ross, and he says that if I have one boss who can help me calm my chatter in my head, the self-talk, that would be so nice. I think I help my team members to do that, to calm them, okay? But also saying that don't try to hide behind psychological safety, There is a lot of ownership and there is a lot of accountability. Absolutely. Which is the most recent thing, that let's not hide behind psychological safety. Even if you have that, you're accountable and you're responsible for the organization's agenda. Between L&T, we have something which is called a smart autonomy. I'll give you autonomy, but the organization's agenda has to be fulfilled. Yeah. So I think that is something which we are practicing and which we are finding a safe space to practice. So
one of the things that really concerns me is when people take their jobs for granted and when they badmouth organization. you may always not get what you want. Context change, you change. But when you're in the organization, I believe you must give 100%.
So I think you've been asking us a lot of questions. This is our time.
Okay.
Let me change the tables. You have been working with us for the past almost 18 months to roughly 2 years now, and you've been a partner with us in the whole organizational transformation work that we are right now doing, which is called as the energy transformation work. It's been a journey of one baby step at a time and one discovery at a time. It's been a journey of joy and pain for both of us. But how have you experienced it, Sujata? You tell me.
Well, I think the starting point of doing anything as a consultant, because I'm the outsider, is that first of all there has to be great amount of trust between the two partners, and the fact that we have so much trust and that we are willing to explore new ideas and new ways, I think is the starting point. But what I found in this culture initiative called Energy, which I am so proud of being part of, is that it has had huge amount of sponsorship from the MD, and we have thought together, iterated and created. The other thing is we have tried not to make it very complicated, and most importantly carry the business stakeholders along. So I remember walking in and meeting one of your colleagues, and I said, how are you doing today? Because this energy was put up everywhere, and he looked at me and said, I'm energized. And I said, wow, that's such a wonderful way of doing that. So the other thing is that there are many assignments we have done together, not only with you but also other parts of the organization, and I think that we must do better every time. I can compare what I did a year ago and said we have done much better, and if we continue we'll do so much more. So I think learning from mistakes, putting in new ideas, having the courage to say let's see what happens, and we've had such a supportive leadership team, MD personally as well as of course both of you, that it's been a very exciting journey. And suddenly the time horizon of how energy will play out over the next 3 years is what I'm really waiting. Now, I may or may not be working with you that time, but the fact that how did it shape the overall culture is very, very exciting. I think the moment you take a long-term view of anything, whether relationship or work, you suddenly create it very differently. You don't do it for the sake of doing it. So I think for that, it's been very, very exciting.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ma'am, I think I should ask this question to you also. How do you perceive the entire journey of energy, and which was like, the kind of an aha moment for you that, wow.
Maybe we should just talk about what energy is. So energy is maybe you can just talk about the culture framework.
Yes, so the culture framework, how it came to be, in L&T we are called as the energy group, and under that we have got hydrocarbon power and green manufacturing. And when we were doing the diagnostic, which was the longest phase, and thankfully it was the longest phase, we got a lot of themes which we got from our members of what is it that we want to do with the organization, how do we want to make it future ready, we want to double the profits and triple the bottom line, how is it that we want to do it. And coupled with that, we knew that there is a big expansion which is coming in the oil and gas sector. So for being ready for that expansion, we have to change a lot of cultural nuances, teenage behaviors that we have. And it's with you. Thanks for doing that for us. Once we went with the themes to our MD, he said, please add these 3-4 things. We gave it to you, and you came back with this beautiful thing, which E stands for entrepreneurial excellence, N stands for nurturing openness and boldness, E stands for effective empowerment, R stands for rallying together for performance, productivity, safety, G stands for growing talent, and Y stands for youthful exuberance. These are the tenates which we really want our culture to be. This is something that is going to help us be that strong, that big, because as an organization, we are a professional organization. Once we've taken a project, we will never leave it.
Yes.
We will complete it, and complete it to the satisfaction of the customer. Okay, so now let me ask Poonam ma'am this question, and I'm sorry I'm taking your role.
No, absolutely.
You have seen this as a role holder, as a HR head. What was that 1 or 2 aha moments for you when this entire journey was happening?
So before I joined hydrocarbon, I had worked in various parts of L&T, and I don't know at which point in time suddenly I was introduced to to my IC head, Mr. Sharma, saying that she's an OD expert. Now, that kind of put a lot of pressure on me. I had done a lot of OD work earlier, but the largeness of the business, the complexity of the business, not knowing the leadership team, the first ask was what got us here, that was our Laksh 2021 targets, will not take us to Laksh 2026. That was my first meeting with Mr. Sharma. And he was so clear in his head that if the one thing which has to change or what is going to make that 2026 happen is culture. And he said, so you are an OD expert, you have to change the culture. I was like completely, I didn't know what to say, and I kept telling him that I can only assure you two things. I will try my level best to make it happen. But you have to also know that I may fail. And I kept telling this. Every time we spoke about it, I would tell him, I said, sir, I can fail and you will have to be patient with me because it is new people, I don't even know the culture. What am I going to come in and change the culture? Okay, so this whole thing. Now, the aha moment for me was that meeting when you first presented this energy to him. And before that, we had rounds and rounds of deliberations, and I think many times you both would come out of that meeting and kind of get flustered that we didn't move forward. And I kept telling you that it's okay, it doesn't matter. Every meeting need not have a conclusion. But I know that his mind was churning and so was ours. So whenever we went back to take time again, we would always get it.
Of course.
Yeah. So in that meeting, when you presented this, and I could see in his eyes that he's now understood what he's going to do. And then we asked him that, so what are the next steps? He said, I will do this, now you leave it to me. That moment, we became the catalysts and he took the ownership of driving culture. And I think that moment was the aha moment for me, because from what is an OD person, at the end of the day, you're a facilitator, you're a catalyst. The owner has to be the business head. And that moment was just, and it has panned out that way. And I keep telling him this. I tell him that your yes and no has shaped the culture.
Tell us more about this, yes and no.
So we go to him with a lot of ideas. Every single time, the three of us incidentally are fountain of ideas. Individually and collectively. So this fountain is as overflowing as you can think it to be. We go to him with 5 slides, 10 slides, 20 slides, and he will only say yes and no. And I'm very carefully looking at him when he's seeing everything. And just his yes and no is enough, and then he actually picks up what should be done. If he's not happy with what we have done, he will take a piece of paper and write, and those papers she keeps very preciously. But I think the entire navigation of this journey has been from him, I would say, and we've been facilitating, we've been telling him how it can be done. For example, this whole survey we've done on exemplars, recognizing exemplars of energy. He was like, it's going to be too early. I said, let me try. But he felt as a concept it was good, and we launched it, the survey, and we got 5,000 responses.
Wow.
5,000 plus, 5,300 plus to give you more specific, which means that what we've been talking about has gone down to the last level in the organization, and in a short span of 9 months. So I think, and now how we have to go forward again, we went with the PPT to him, and then he said, don't do this, don't do this, do this, and that's it. And that's what, for me, that is that light, which, that thread he gives me, and then, we all go by that, but which also doesn't stop us from ideating ever. And again, giving him ideas, again choosing it. So that's what I mean when I say that his yes and no has actually shaped it out.
Shaped the journey, right. Next question to you, madam.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, Sujata, you have managed the transitions of a lot of organizations. What are one or two things that you would say that are hallmark of transitions? Question number one. Question number two, we work with a lot of big companies. There are big fives, big fours, and everybody has their own models of change and stuff like that. In that much of a crowd of organizations who are helping bigger companies to do change, how does a firm like Tutul, which is a boutique firm which has its own values and ethics and core space, how do you make sense to bigger organization? What keeps you relevant and going?
So let me try and answer the first question,
I know.
which is for what is it that helps transformation and transition take place. I think number one is sponsorship, and number two is willingness to co-create. If I look at all the places where I have had the opportunity to do good work, it's the trust that the organization has, saying we don't have all the answers, but we will figure it out together. When I see people saying we don't have all the answers and we'll figure it out together, that's when I know that nobody's afraid to come up with big ideas. And the third thing I've learned is sometimes you tell the same story again and again to be able to make it work. So I remember there are places where I have told them ideas and stories, and one day they say, now we're ready to do this. So I never give up saying what is there. I think also one sometimes should have the courage to say when it's not working. Painful it is, there are tears, there's emotion, but sometimes you say perhaps this was not the right path, perhaps we were too early, perhaps the timing is wrong. So I think these are 3-4 things that I've learned. The question you've asked me is about how we...
The space of consulting.
The space of consulting, we are. So I recently was asking the team to count. We are 4.5 years old. How many clients we have? And they came out with the number 78.
Wow.
And I didn't believe it. And I said, are you sure we've done 78? Now there are two ways of looking at it. I can look at the fact that I'm competing with larger organizations and large teams. Or I can look at the fact that 78 companies, and many of them are large organizations such as yours, have put their faith that these people will give their best. Just like L&T says, they say about L&T, L&T hai to mumkin hai. Every project team, they say, whatever happens, we will deliver. I think we get a lot of inspiration from that, and we say, these 78 people have put their faith in us, we will give our best. The other thing I think we try and do is very high context and innovative work. We are not a factory, we are not interested in replicating things. And thirdly, I think there is a magic that is created when you have like-minded people coming together. And I've been lucky to get that. All these 78 clients have come to us. We have never asked them to come. So as you do good work, like fragrance, it spreads and then people call us. So I don't know, but I'll figure it out as we go along is the mantra.
All the very best.
Thank you so much.
We've known each other for around, I think, 25 years
25
now.
years, yes.
25 years. And I've seen you through your various avatars, if I may say it.
Okay.
You were working in Mercer. Then we met as you were a consultant with ECS. Then I met when you were with some other consultant. I remember you coming in a skirt and meeting me. Okay. I mean, the memory is so clear because it was a new organization. I don't remember the name of the company. Or kind of remember it, but not saying it because I'm not sure whether it's right. But nevertheless, you calling me one day and saying that you're opening or you're starting your own journey, and I've always admired you. I mean, every assignment or every work that we have done together in this 25 years has been in different capacities. Every time I have found you to be phenomenal. You bring your 150% to the job. And a lot of your struggles as friends as a friend you've told me, but as a consultant, I think it's been, you've only done the best and, made sure every meeting counted. I want to ask you, how has your journey been from your point of view? I mean, I admire you as an outsider, but how has it been for you?
When I was in college, I was studying political science, and I was wondering what to do in my career, and I was very close to my political science teacher, and I'd gone to her house. And I said, everyone's trying MBA and everyone's trying this. I think maybe I should also write. I don't want to, but let me write. And her husband told me, I remember, sir, he said, you are so transparent, like a book I can read you. How are you going to survive in the world? You are a total idealist. I don't see you doing that at all. And I said, oh, really? But okay. And I was very clear. I didn't want to do an MBA, but I got into it, so did it, and I said, okay, let's start with factory. And I was so naive and so foolishly optimistic that I would raise my hand and give my ideas where everybody was 30 years older than me. Here was I, 23-year-old, not realizing even that if my boss has very gently tried to snub me saying, "Tum naye ho, tumhe kya aata hai?" And I always raised my hand with enthusiasm. And I realized that at some point in time, and I said, I know I could be wrong, but I'm new. How does it matter? By not taking offense and by dealing with opportunities, there are moments where you get a chance to shine and excel. So that's happened. Second, I have always found good people. I don't know how. I mean, the world is full of all kinds of people. I am not politically savvy, but somehow I've always found people willing to help. And third, I said, see, I can go after a career that gives me a lot of money or prestige or name, or I can go after a career that gives me intense and varied experiences. My wealth today is the fact that I have worked with thousands of people across 400 companies, the smallest of small and the largest of large, places you go in skirts and jackets and places where you have to cover your head. And the wealth of experiences that I've had has been my university, and along the way so many people have held my hand and worked with me. So I think my journey, I always jump into things headlong. I don't overthink what will happen because I know that something will come and catch me. So that's been my journey. And even when I started Tutul, which is named after my father, I had no idea whether Tutul would succeed, what would happen, but somehow things have come to me. So I believe go after learning, go after being sharp, always be straightforward, try and do good. It will always come back to you. So a lot of people say, how did you start? I said, I don't even remember how I started. I just started. Log judte gaye, karwa banta gaya. And I've been incredibly lucky, not just to do, you're an outsider, you get a ringside view of an organization, but to meet extraordinary people such as yourselves and enjoy the process. Yeah, kaam karna hai, don't take yourself so seriously. My father would always say, enjoy the process. So I like, in a workshop or in a meeting, there is laughter and there is camaraderie and there is fun. It's like haste kaam hota hai, it's not that I have to come here and thumb the table. So I think the journey has been so far really good. It stretched me. There are days I have no idea what I'm going to do. There are days I have failed, but there are many, many good memories. And I hope that this continues.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. So we'll do some rapid fire before we close. Is
Sure.
that okay? Women are not good negotiators. Yes or no?
That's for me or that's for her? This is me negotiating. 5 rupee dhania or it is a 5 crore deal. Bring it to us. We'll teach you how to do it.
Women can't work successful women can't work together.
Have you seen us?
Okay.
I think it's secure people can work together irrespective of gender.
Very well said. Very well said. Culture building initiatives are very expensive and time consuming. Question for you.
No, they are not. Culture building, interventions require a lot of time, sweat and love. And that's the actual currency. It's not what you're going to put in as a green dollar, but the amount of time and emotion that you can actually put in, that's the actual expenditure. If you're able to do it, you're able to make a great organization.
Okay, question for you. Would you bet on a person who's always been successful, or would you bet on a person who's failed a couple of times and had successes? Whom would you bet on?
There's no question. There cannot be, which utopian person are you talking who's been always successful? He doesn't exist, so I will bet on the live person who has successes and failures.
Okay, last question.
One second. If you have always been that successful, you're a unicorn and this universe doesn't belong to you then.
Yes, that's right. Well said. Does gender impact your leadership style?
Not really. It's leadership. It's a position. There are decisions. There are outcomes. In fact, I think it makes me better.
I think it does. I mean, I very strongly.
Yeah.
It is not only gender, but also your upbringing, your experiences, the kind of values that you have, all of it impacts your leadership style.
I agree. When people ask me, what women leader program, male leader, whatever, I mean, nobody says male leader, they only say women leader. I always say that the point to look at is masculinity and femininity, not your actual gender or what you identify as. And masculinity is associated with certain traits: focus, rationality, drive. Feminine is associated with collaboration, intuition, carrying people along. I've seen a lot of men who have a lot of feminine traits and vice versa. So I think it's both of that.
Can I share something?
Yes.
When I started the Winspire movement,
Which is a women's initiative.
Women started as a women's initiative. Now it has expanded to women, gender, generation, and PWDs.
Wow.
So inclusion, DEI, entire agenda. But when we said that, I was at that point in time heading the learning and development, corporate learning and development, and we said we will give 100 trained women leaders to the organization every year. We have some cadre-based system in the organization, so we said first-time leaders, mid-career leaders, mid-career women, and senior leadership. And then, of course, my team started searching for programs and things like that. Every time they would present a program to me, I would say, okay, you remove the word women. Now you tell me, how is this program different? Yeah. And it would not be. And I said, this is not what I'm going to deliver. Then I sat down and I said, I don't want any lady who has attended a women leadership program organized by us to be ineligible for attending any leadership program just because she has attended this. There are unique challenges that women face in each stage of the career that we had defined. We will do a program to help them handle just those challenges.
Perfect.
And then strengthen them at that for those challenges, and they are eligible for every other regular management program. And I think we've been fairly successful in doing that.
When we look at leadership development, the L&T stand is that it's not just about the depth of expertise that a person has, it's not just the T, but it is also the breadth of perspective that you have. So any leadership program which is just focusing on, making you more into the technical aspects is important. But when you're talking about a particular style of leadership which will carry you forward the organization, that breadth is required. And to that, man or women, both require the T, the expertise and the breadth of perspective.
So T for Tutul, T for learning, and I think you've all answered the questions to a T. So let me end by saying it is a privilege to work with people you like and respect. And here are two women who do phenomenal work and women whom I like and respect. Thank you so much for coming on Tutul Dialogues, and we hope we'll have you here again.
Absolutely.